Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today in this beautiful venue. This is actually very beautiful, and thanks for the wine and cheese as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gloria Carlineo, and I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, in the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. I lived there until I was about 16 years of age, at which point I moved to Tampa, Florida. I attended the University of Florida and then the University of Cincinnati College of Law. I graduated from there in 1997. And not wanting to practice, I decided to move to Washington, D.C. And there I worked for the governor of Puerto Rico first, and then I moved on to work in Congress for Congressman Dale Burton, who was then the chairman of the Government Reform Committee. Now, working there gave me some great insight as to what works in Congress and what doesn't work in Congress. I dealt with a lot of issues such as health and Medicare, Social Security, transportation, and also a lot of investigations of government agencies. And that experience, along with some of the experience that I got with some of the national organizations that I have been involved with for over 15 years, as well as some appointments that I got from several governors, Republican governors in states that I have lived in, is hopefully the insight that I'm going to bring to you as your representative. We can all agree that this is a very critical time in our history. As a mom and as an American, I am very concerned that if we don't act right now, we may lose the country as we know it. And the Democrats are going to take indefinite control of it. Our country has been weakened and fractured, and the Democratic Party is taking advantage of this. And we need to... The reason that they have done this is by appealing to those people who would rather have a free lunch than those that would rather have our country strong. Now, we all know that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And I know that everybody here and a lot of the people that we see around the country are the people who are willing to fight and keep our country strong. Now, you're here tonight because you have a big decision to make on May 18th. And I understand that based on the rhetoric and everything that we stand up here and say, it can be difficult to see a difference between the different candidates. We know that we have a political atmosphere that is not very sympathetic right now to career politicians that change their political ideas according to the political winds. No matter how much one of my opponents tries to avoid it, the fact remains that he has a record that he has to explain, and no amount of money is going to hide that. And I want to make sure that I tell you what the differences between the two of us are. One thing, while I would never support CardCheck, my opponent proudly displayed his co-sponsorship of CardCheck and is featured in the AFL-CIO website. While I would never put the interests of big labor bosses ahead of the private sector through regulations such as the Davis-Bacon Act, my opponent is a strong proponent of that, and he even demanded that President Bush actually enacted during the cleanup for Katrina. This is probably why my opponent got a lot of money from the big labor, close to $100,000 for his 05 and 06 election. These are the same labor unions that gave us Pelosi and Obama, by the way. While I would never support private sector crippling legislation such as cap and trade, during his one term in office, he sponsored a cap and trade type legislation that was sponsored by the ultra-liberal Congressman Henry Waxman. I would also support utilizing the resources that our country has in abundance, such as natural gas and oil reserves, particularly when we're doing so in an environmentally safe manner. In contrast, during his one term in office, he consistently opposed drilling in Anwar. Now, I also believe that earmark reform, it needs to be addressed. We cannot be supporting any more pork barrel spending. I take great pride in being the only person in this race who, as of today, has signed the Americans for Tax Reform, and that's Grover Norquist's group, no new taxes pledge. During his one term in office, my opponent consistently bragged about the pork that he brought to Pennsylvania. He did so on his old website, which is probably the reason why the Citizens Against Government Waste organization gave him a 37% rating. It is ironic that my opponent has criticized Murphy for receiving an F from the National Taxpayers Union when he himself received a D. In fact, my opponent received a C- in his first year in Congress. To me, that's not an improvement. Now, as Ronald Reagan once said, facts are stubborn things, but we need to address these issues in this primary. As Thomas Jefferson once said, in matters of style, you swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. With me as your congresswoman, you have a principled conservative who will stand up for the people of the 8th District and will always carry the values of Bucks County to Washington. But there is another compelling reason why I am in this race. And that is because as Republicans, we must make every effort to grow our base. We have to do that if we ever want to regain power again. We can't simply just go back to business as usual and hope that we win. We can't always be electing the same old players. We recycle the players, we recycle the problems. It is unfortunate that many in the Republican Party would rather lose protecting their self-interest than win by renewing the leadership and allowing new people to come up. This is one of the reasons why the Republican Party is almost certainly doomed for extinction. This is why so many Americans have grown sickened of the way the Republican Party does its business. This is why new generations of Americans willing to contribute to the party are purposely left out. Now, you probably heard this week about President Obama's pleas to bring the young people, women, minorities to join him once again so they can win in November. Putting aside the debate as to the appropriateness of those comments, which, for the record, I believe they were very unfortunate and inappropriate coming from the President of the United States, those are words that seek to divide us, not unite us. The fact remains that this is how the Democratic Party remains in power. And they're going to do so for generations to come. The sad truth is that the Republican Party is losing those very constituencies that Obama is going after. And I am here to tell you that without the independents, without the young, without the minorities, and without the women, the GOP will render itself irrelevant over the next few years. Just for example, during the 2008 election, the GOP lost 13% of the previous election's female vote. Now we have a 37%. We basically lost all the black vote. And when it comes to Hispanic, we only got about 31%, down from 44% the previous elections. Why is this a problem? Because the Hispanic community is the largest community in the United States, the largest minority community, and is growing by leaps and bounds. In the last election, half of all new registered voters were Hispanic. Where do you think they went? Yet we have about 5,700 Hispanic leaders, elected officials here in this country. How many do you think are Republican? 113. That is the problem. And I know this because last Friday I attended a briefing with Chairman Michael Steele, who is doing everything in his power to save the GOP, even when there's a lot of forces from within that are trying to bring him down. I, more than any other candidate here tonight, have worked with a lot of these different constituencies. And I know that the best approach to get to them, we all believe in the same things, it's just how we package it, how we talk to them about this. I hope to serve as a role model and help grow our base by reaching out to those voters that should be in our camp, but have become disillusioned with the GOP. Now, it is true that we don't currently have a Ronald Reagan to lead us, but we can still follow his example. But we must first reform our party, just like Reagan did not so very long ago. We must refocus our identity, and we must recommit to the conservative values that we so deeply believe in. If we are to make lasting, long-term change in this country, we must first take the Republican Party back to the right of center. We don't do this just by winning an election over Murphy. We must embrace our fundamental conservative principles and elect leaders who are not ashamed to stand up for these principles. I am that leader, and with your help, I know that we can bring back our country to its rightful glory. I ask each of you tonight, are you going to have the courage of our founding fathers and stand up to what you believe and restore our country, or are you simply going to be sitting on the sidelines? I hope you're going to join us. I hope you're going to be like the founding fathers, and I hope I can count on your support on May 18th. God bless you.